My parents ruined my 29th birthday dinner and slapped me with a $120,000 invoice. But I exposed their lies and destroyed their perfect family image. I'm writing because I want everyone to understand what happened before I do what I'm going to do. My phone has 53 missed calls from my mother, Rebecca, 42 from my father, Edward, and 28 from my sister Sarah. They have been bombing up my phone since Friday morning, and it is just Monday afternoon. I haven't responded to a single one, and I won't. Let me go back to last Thursday, my 29th birthday. My parents insisted on hosting me a large family dinner at their home. They mentioned that it would be good to have everyone together as we hadn't had a major gathering in a long. I should have known something was amiss when my mother expressly instructed me to arrive at 6:30 p.m. sharp and well-dressed. She kept emphasizing how crucial this was and how I needed to be there on time. I arrived at 5:55 p.m. There were cars everywhere. I counted at least 18 vehicles in the driveway and on the street. When I stepped in, the living and dining rooms were crowded with relatives, aunts, uncles, cousins, my grandmother and friends I hadn't seen in years. Someone had set up a huge table of food. Everybody was dressed up. It resembled a wedding banquet. My sister Sarah was standing near the door with a strange look on her face. She asked me to come into the dining room because Mom and Dad wanted to make an announcement. I assumed they were going to give an uncomfortable birthday toast or show old baby photos. Standard parent stuff. Edward stood at the head of the table, clinking his glass. Everyone became quiet. He began discussing how they had reared me for 29 years. How they had sacrificed everything and given me every opportunity. His tone seemed strange. It was neither friendly or jubilant. It seemed cold and official, as if he were reading a prepared statement. Then Rebecca got up. She stepped over to the wall with family portraits displayed. She grabbed my high school graduation photo, ripped it from the wall and dumped it in the garbage can they had placed nearby. Then she removed another photo of me and another. Every time she threw one out, she said something. You were always ungrateful. You never appreciated what we gave you. You're a failure who drained us dry. The room was totally silent. Nobody moved. Nobody mentioned anything. My granny held her palm over her lips. My cousin was recording with his phone. I just stood there trying to understand what was occurring. Edward took out a manila folder and handed it to me. Inside was a printed document. The top declared, "Invoice for parenting services rendered," and detailed every expense they claimed to have incurred while raising me. Diapers, formula, clothing, school supplies, auto insurance, college fees, and line items dating back 29 years. The sum at the bottom was $120,000. He informed me that they had wasted every penny raising an ungrateful kid who never amounted to anything. He told me I had two options: repay them in full or never touch them again. He stated they were finished being my parents. I was officially cut off from my family. Sarah stepped forward and extended her hand. She instructed me to give her my car keys. I was perplexed until Edward explained that the car I had been driving was still technically in his name. He had been allowing me to use it, but now he was transferring the title to Sarah. She needed a nicer automobile nevertheless. Sarah grabbed the keys out of my grasp and placed them in her purse. That's when I recognized David, my supervisor from work, sitting at the far end of the table. He was present at my parents' birthday dinner for me. Rebecca indicated to him, saying they'd invited him to hear the truth about who I truly was. David came up and informed me that he had a long talk with my parents earlier that week. They had expressed some concerns regarding my character and work ethic. He stated, based on their feedback and his own observations, he was terminating my employment effective immediately. I should clear my desk on Monday morning. I need you to comprehend something. I did not cry. I did not yell. I did not question why or urge them to rethink. I looked around the room full of relatives and family friends who had come to see my humiliation. I stared at my parents, sister and old boss before turning around and walking away. I called an Uber from the sidewalk. I returned to my flat and started making arrangements. Here's what my parents didn't know. I had been planning for anything like this for 3 years. Not quite this scenario, but I'd known for a while that our relationship was failing. They'd been telling me for years that I was a disappointment, that I wasn't living up to their expectations, and that I owed them everything they'd done. The intensity has increased since I began making my own decisions about my life, rather than following their suggested path. My father wanted me to attend medical school. I went to tech support instead. My mother urged me to participate in her church activities and social clubs. I stopped attending after college. They wanted me to date Sarah's friends and join the country club. I didn't either. Every decision I took that deviated from their vision fueled more animosity. My parents are all about image, prestige, what their family and friends think. They needed everyone to perceive them as beautiful parents with perfect children leading perfect lives. I wasn't going along with that story anymore. So they chose to openly remove me from it. What they didn't expect was that I am truly competent at my work. Very good. David firing me was a problem that would be resolved once I contacted his regional boss, with whom I had worked directly on several large accounts. David had no true reasons for firing, and my parents could not give any legitimate performance problems. The car was unpleasant, but not disastrous. It was a 2016 sedan with 125,000 miles that need new brakes. Sarah could get it. The $120,000 bill was legally meaningless. Parents cannot charge their children for parenting them. That document had no enforceability. It was completely theatrical. My parents were unaware that their theatrical presentation had witnesses. They humiliated their son on his birthday in front of 35 or more witnesses. Some of the witnesses had their own complicated ties with Edward and Rebecca. Some of them were curious about where particular family funds had gone over the years. Some of them remembered things that my parents probably wished they had forgotten. I spent Thursday night creating a list. I spent Friday investigating. By Saturday I had collected phone numbers and email addresses. By Sunday I had written many carefully crafted messages. Friday morning, my phone started ringing. Rebecca comes first, followed by Edward, and last Sarah. I let all calls go to voicemail. The initial messages were hostile. How dare I walk away without saying anything? How could I embarrass them in front of their family? Did I think I could simply ignore them? On Friday afternoon the tone changed. They needed to talk with me. It was important. There were some things they needed to explain. Could I just answer the phone? Saturday, the calls became desperate. Rebecca left a voicemail stating that there had been some misunderstandings during the dinner. Things had gotten out of control. They had not intended for it to go that way. She wanted to meet for coffee and clear the air. Sunday morning, Edward left a message explaining their mistakes and how they handled the situation. He wanted to talk about everything calmly and find out a way forward as a family. Sarah texted me 12 times in a row on Sunday evening. Mom and Dad were panicking out. Relatives were calling to ask questions. Some folks spoke terrible things. Grandmother was upset. I needed to contact them back right now to let everyone know that I was all right and that we were working things out. I didn't respond to anything because this was what was happening. Those carefully written letters I had sent out on Sunday morning were making their way around the family network. Certain family were having certain chats. Questions were being asked regarding Edward's financial actions throughout the years. Questions about why Rebecca's mother's fortune was divided the way it did. There are questions concerning what actually happened to Sarah's college fund. I was not breaching any laws. I was not making anything up. I was only ensuring that the appropriate individuals know how to ask the relevant questions about what had actually occurred. My parents had been very careful to keep things secret. Things they kept hidden beneath their beautiful family picture. The calls kept coming. 53, 42, 28. I have saved them all. Every voicemail in which the panic escalates. Sarah uses a variety of strategies to persuade me to respond to each text message. They want to chat. They want to explain. They want me to make it stop. I'm not going to make it stop. I'm going to make things worse. Update 1. It's been 8 days since the birthday dinner, and I need to provide an update because this scenario has taken unexpected turns. The calls have not ceased. I currently have 89 missed calls from Rebecca, 71 from Edward, and 46 from Sarah. However, that is no longer the most interesting element. Let me clarify what the texts I sent were. I did not make up anything or propagate lies. I contacted certain relatives and asked them questions about specific occurrences that had occurred over the years. My parents meticulously crafted the narrative around specific events. My uncle Michael, Edward's younger brother, received a note wondering if he had ever gotten the $15,000 left to him in Grandma Rose's will. Michael was intended to receive that money, according to the will I discovered at Grandma's house years ago while assisting her with paperwork organization. I had often puzzled why he never mentioned it. My Aunt Laura, Rebecca's sister, received a note inquiring about the earnings from the sale of their mother's house following her death. Their mother had lived in the house for 40 years. It sold for $300,000. Laura said at Thanksgiving that she had never seen any of the money. My cousin James, who is Michael's son and not my boss, Received a note asking if he knew what happened to the college fund that our grandmother had put up for all of the grandchildren. She had set it up in 2005, with precise instructions that each grandchild would receive an equal amount when they turned 18. I didn't tell anyone what to do with the information. I just asked questions. Questions that prompted people to consider issues that they had previously been too polite or conflict-averse to address. Monday morning, I dealt with a work scenario. I called the regional manager, Marcus, with whom I had worked directly on the software migration project last year. I indicated that David fired me on Friday without cause and without following correct procedure. Marcus was perplexed because he had not been informed of any termination. When I informed him David had made the decision based on a talk with my parents over a family meal, he remained silent for a long time. Then he told me to sit tight and he'd call back. Marcus called again 2 hours later. David was suspended pending an inquiry into illegal firing practices. I was being reinstated, with back pay for the days I had missed. Marcus apologized for what had occurred and stated that he would be personally checking in with me to ensure that there were no retaliatory concerns moving forward. So I got my job back. That was one problem fixed. The car scenario was more unpleasant. I looked into my alternatives and decided that because Edward officially owned the automobile and freely transferred it to Sarah, I had no legal remedy to reclaim it. It didn't matter that I had been paying the insurance and maintenance bills. His name was on the title. I started taking the bus to work and browsing used car listings online. On Wednesday afternoon my uncle Michael called me. Not texted but genuinely called. I responded because Michael had always been nice to me, and I was interested about what he wanted. He got right to the point. He'd been reading through old paperwork after I sent that message, and he had discovered the original copy of Grandma Rose's will. He had never got the $15,000. Edward served as the estate's executor. Michael had inquired about it at the time, and Edward had informed him that the estate did not have sufficient liquid assets after paying debts and burial expenses. However, Michael had just requested the estate filing forms from the county clerk's office. After paying out all of its bills and expenses, the estate had $50,000. Edward had filed a form saying that the entire cash was used for burial and estate administration fees. Michael asked whether I knew anything about it. I told him I didn't know the details, but I was aware that Edward had paid off his truck about the same time and took Rebecca on an expensive vacation. Michael became quite silent. Then he told me he was going to talk to Edward and that he appreciated me asking the question. Sarah visited my apartment on Thursday morning. I have no idea how she got my address because I moved here 6 months ago and had not provided it to any family members. She must have followed me to work or asked someone. She was standing in the corridor as I departed for my bus route. She looked awful. Her eyes were red, and she had that feverish energy that comes from not getting enough sleep. She began chatting instantly. Mom and Dad were going crazy. Family members were continually calling them. Uncle Michael had arrived at the house on Tuesday night with a copy of Grandma's will, and there had been a heated argument. Aunt Laura had hired someone to investigate the house transaction. Cousin James had called a lawyer regarding the college fund. Everyone was turning against them, and it was my fault. I asked Sarah why she believed I was responsible for Edward and Rebecca's actions. She said I stirred everything up on purpose. I had sent those texts to cause issues. I was attempting to destroy the family because I was upset over the birthday meal. I promised her that I would only ask questions about things that had truly happened. If those queries were generating problems, perhaps she should investigate why. Sarah shifted strategies. She said the birthday supper was Dad's idea, not Mom's. She stated her mother tried to talk him out of it, but Dad was determined to teach me a lesson. She claimed they had both been drinking before the supper began, and things had gotten out of control. She told me I needed to understand that they were stressed and that I hadn't made things simple for them. I inquired as to how much worry I had caused her. She became unclear. Just the regular stuff. I'd been pulling away from my family. I stopped attending gatherings. The way I refused to date her friend Melissa when they attempted to set us up. I picked an ordinary job rather than pursuing something more ambitious, as they had desired. None of this explains the birthday meal. None of this explains the public humiliation. None of this explained the attempt to get me dismissed from my work. Sarah kept talking in circles, as if everyone had made mistakes and we should all just go on. I asked her about the car keys. She appeared uneasy. She claimed Dad informed her I wasn't operating the car correctly and that she needed a vehicle for her new job. I inquired about her new employment. She did not have an answer for that. She had been working part-time at a boutique for the past year. Nothing had changed. I asked her if she knew about the dinner ahead of time and what they were planning. She took too long before saying no. That hesitation revealed all. She knew something was going to happen, though she didn't know exactly what. Sarah tried again. She told me I needed to call my parents. She said I should tell Uncle Michael, Aunt Laura, and everyone else to stop asking questions. She said the family was disintegrating and I was the only one who could restore it. I asked her why I wanted to solve it. She did not have a response to that either. Rebecca showed up to my workplace on Friday afternoon. I was in the break room when Marcus approached me and informed me that there was someone in the lobby looking for me. When I got down, my mother was sitting in one of the guest chairs, as if she were attending a business meeting. She was all dressed up, with flawless hair, makeup, and full Rebecca armor. She told me that we needed to chat quietly. I told her we could discuss right in the foyer. She looked around at the receptionist, the security guard, and the other individuals passing through. She stated that this was a family company and needed to be kept private. I informed her she had made our family business public by inviting 35 relatives to witness her toss my photos away. If she wanted to speak with me now, she could do so here. Rebecca's composure cracked somewhat. She claimed I was being unfair and childish. She said she'd come here to apologize and attempt to make things right, but I was making that impossible. I asked her what she was sorry for explicitly. She started listing things in a performative manner. She was sorry that the dinner had turned emotional. She was remorseful for what had been uttered in fury. She was sorry I had been hurt by what had transpired. I stopped her. I inquired whether she apologized for pulling my photos off the wall. She explained that this was one of the reasons she had become too emotional. I inquired if she was sorry for calling me worthless and that I had drained them dry. She said she was upset and didn't mean it that way. I inquired if she was sorry for inviting my boss to dismiss me. She explained that it was Edward's idea and she had told him it was too much. Every answer was a deflection. Every apology included an excuse, an explanation, or a way to deflect responsibility. I asked her what she wanted from me. She asked me to forgive them so they could move forward as a family. She asked me to cease whatever I was doing that was causing family to ask all these inquiries. She claimed she wanted everything to return to normal. I told her there was no normal to return to. She ruined everything at the birthday supper. She claimed I was overreacting to one horrible night. I asked her whether she believed this was just one horrible night or 29 years of them treating me as a disappointment because I didn't live the life they had intended for me. Rebecca stood up. She claimed she had attempted to be reasonable. She attempted to apologize, but I was determined to be tough and vindictive. She warned me that I would regret it once I learned I had ruined my own family over bruised feelings. Then she left the lobby. Marcus had witnessed the entire event from the second-floor corridor. He came down thereafter and asked whether I was all right. I told him that I was okay. He stated that if she came up again, building security would handle it. He also stated that he had submitted an official complaint regarding David's behavior and that there would be a thorough review procedure. Saturday, my phone rang 67 times. Sunday, it rang 45 times. I haven't responded any of them, but I did listen to the voicemails. They are becoming increasingly anxious and angry. Edward left a note stating that I was pulling up everything he had achieved. Rebecca left one in which she claimed I was deceptive and harsh. Sarah left one in which she was crying and stating that I was ruining her life as well since everyone was interrogating her about stuff she had no idea about. The issue is, all I've done is ask questions about facts, about actual events that occurred. If those facts are producing problems for Edward and Rebecca, that is not my manipulation. It is the result of their actions. And this is only the beginning. I have more questions lined up. Questions regarding other family events and financial decisions. Other times when my parents' account of events differed from reality, I had years of observations saved up, but I kept silent about it all to keep the peace. I am done keeping the peace. Update 2. It's been 17 days since the birthday dinner, and the situation has escalated in ways that are quite entertaining to see. I'm writing from a parking lot outside a grocery shop since I needed to get out of my apartment for a time to process what had transpired. Missed calls have slowed. I'm at 130 from Rebecca, 107 from Edward, and 70 from Sarah, but that's because they've switched strategies. Yesterday, a family meeting was held at my grandmother's house. I wasn't invited, yet I learned about every detail from 3 distinct sources within an hour of the event concluding. Let me catch up on what has happened since my last update. Uncle Michael filed a formal complaint in probate court regarding Grandma Rose's estate. He presented the original will and county records indicating that the estate had $50,000 in liquid assets. He is requesting a detailed explanation of where the money went and why he never received his inheritance. Edward is now compelled to submit documentation or risk legal action for mismanaging the inheritance. Aunt Laura hired someone to investigate her mother's house sale. Rebecca was also named as a co-executive for that estate. The home sold for $300,000. After paying off the mortgage and estate costs, Laura and Rebecca should have received an equal share of $185,000. Laura got $30,000. Rebecca informed her that this was her complete half, including all additional costs and fees. Laura's investigator discovered evidence indicating that the entire $185,000 was distributed, with $150,000 going to an account in Rebecca's name. My cousin James called the bank that handled Grandma Rose's college fund trust. The trust was established in 2005 with $55,000 and explicit instructions that it be split equally to all 6 grandkids when they turned 18. Edward had been nominated as the trustee. James turned 18 in 2015. He never received money. When he approached Edward about it back then, Edward explained that the fund had underperformed and had been emptied due to market losses and management expenses. The bank gave James with the complete trust history. In 2015, the fund had increased to $75,000. There were 5 withdrawals between 2015 and 2020, each of which coincided with a grandchild's 18th birthday. Each withdrawal reflected the total amount in the account at the moment. All 5 withdrawals were made to an account owned by Edward and Rebecca. So now there are 3 separate cases in which my parents were in charge of family finances and the funds vanished. I did not cause any of this. I simply posed the questions that prompted folks to look at records they should have reviewed years ago. On Tuesday afternoon, Sarah returned to my apartment. This time she was accompanied by a tall man dressed in an expensive suit whom I did not recognize. Sarah introduced him as a legal buddy who was here to assist us sort things out. I asked Sarah why we needed a lawyer to speak. She stated that things had gotten difficult and that someone neutral should intervene before things worsened. The lawyer, whose name I quickly forgot, began discussing family reconciliation and how litigation between family members never ends well for anyone. He said he had evaluated the case and that there were clearly some misunderstandings that could be resolved via open conversation. He advised that we all sit down together, parents and children, and discuss everything calmly with him present to keep things productive. I inquired who was paying him. He explained he was doing this as a favor for Sarah. I asked Sarah how she met this lawyer. She became vague again. She'd met him through pals. He'd offered to assist when he learned about our family problems. I asked him explicitly who had approached him initially. He said Sarah had contacted him, but Rebecca had provided him with background information on the incident, so my mother had Sarah bring a lawyer to my apartment to try to get me to sit down for a mediated talk. I told them I was not interested. The lawyer claimed I was making a mistake. He stated that families who allow issues to grow into court battles frequently damage ties forever. I told him that the relationships had already been damaged during a birthday dinner 17 days ago. Sarah began crying. This time, the tears were genuine, not staged. She claimed I was spoiling everything. She claimed that her parents were splitting up. She said Uncle Michael was not speaking to them. She claimed Aunt Laura had shouted at Mom over the phone for 20 minutes. She stated that the entire family was taking sides, and she was caught in the midst. She said I had to mend it because I began it. I asked Sarah if she was aware of any of the missing funds, such as Michael's unclaimed inheritance, Laura's unclaimed house sale earnings, or the missing college fund. She said she knew nothing about any of it. I asked her if she thought Mom and Dad had reasonable explanations for where all the money went. She stated that there needed to be explanations. She denied that her parents were thieves. She stated that there were most likely misunderstandings and errors in paperwork. I asked her if she truly believed it or if she was simply trying to convince herself. She didn't respond. The lawyer attempted to resume mediation discussions. I told both of them to go. Sarah kept crying. The lawyer put a business card on my kitchen counter. They left. Wednesday, I received a text from my grandmother. She received a text message rather than a phone call, which was uncommon given that she is 81 years old and barely knows how to use her phone. The text stated that she wanted to see me. She informed me that the family was meeting at her place on Saturday afternoon and I needed to be there. She stated it was vital, but she wasn't asking. I texted back to see whether Edward and Rebecca would be there. She stated everyone will be present. I inquired if this was an ambush. She explained that it was a family meeting to discuss serious topics, and my presence was needed. I assured her that I would think about it. Rebecca called me on Thursday from an unfamiliar phone number. I responded since I suspected it might be work-related. She began chatting instantly. She stated I had won. She claimed I had successfully turned the family against them. She claimed I had ruined their reputation and connections with everyone they cared about. She replied, "I must be very proud of myself." I wondered whether she was phoning to blame me for the repercussions of her own conduct. She claimed I orchestrated the issue to make them appear terrible. She said I'd ask questions that made people suspect, even though there were perfectly legitimate reasons for everything. I asked her what a logical rationale was for withholding Michael's $15,000 inheritance. She indicated the estate had debts I wasn't aware of. I asked her what the reasonable argument was for withholding $150,000 from Laura's house selling proceeds. She stated that there had been additional estate fees that Laura was unaware of. I asked her why she hadn't mentioned these expenses to Michael and Laura before, and why she had led them to assume they had gotten their entire inheritance. She said it was complicated, and I wouldn't understand because I'd never managed a family estate. I told her she was correct, and I couldn't comprehend how someone could take from their own family members while sleeping at night. Rebecca's tone changed completely. She stated I didn't know what I was talking about. She claimed she and Edward had given all for this family. She claimed that they had put everyone else first for decades. She said that if they had spent any of that money for their own needs, they would have earned it over the years by taking care of everyone else's concerns. I questioned her if Michael and Laura understood they had gained the right to take money that wasn't theirs. She hung up. On Friday morning, Edward called from the same mysterious number. He took a different strategy. He stated he knew I was upset about the birthday dinner. He admitted that he had handled things poorly and regretted the way he tackled the problem. He claimed he was attempting to educate me about responsibility and gratitude, but he had gone too far. He stated that he wanted to set things right. I asked him what doing things right looked like. He said we could sit down as a family and discuss everything. He stated we could resolve the issues with Michael, Laura, and James. He stated that there were answers to the financial questions that people were raising, and he wanted an opportunity to adequately explain them. He stated if I came to the family meeting on Saturday, he'd answer any issues I had and we could begin to re-establish trust. I asked if he was going to write Michael a check for $15,000. He claimed it was not that simple. I asked him whether he was going to write Laura a check for $150,000. He stated that the estate circumstances were legally complex and required proper documentation and assessment. I asked him whether he would return the money from the college fund that was due to be distributed to 6 grandkids. He stated that the money had been utilized for family needs throughout the years, and there was no pool of cash waiting to be returned. So, basically, he asked me to attend a family gathering where he would explain why he was justified in hoarding money that belonged to others. I told him I was not interested in his explanations. He claimed I owed him an opportunity to defend himself. I told him he had 17 days to defend himself, but he'd spent it contacting me 107 times and sending Sarah with a lawyer to put pressure on me. He said I was being unfair and vengeful. I hung up. Saturday morning, I received 6 more texts from Sarah. She begged me to come to Grandma's house. She claimed everyone would be there and here was my chance to hear my mother and father's perspectives. She stated if I didn't come, I was proving that I didn't care about the truth and only wanted to cause trouble. She stated Grandma was furious because I refused to attend. She claimed that my absence was exacerbating the situation. I didn't attend the family gathering. Instead, I sat in my apartment, waiting for the expected updates. At 3:47 p.m., I received a text from Cousin James. The meeting had been disastrous. Edward and Rebecca attempted to explain the financial position, but were unable to offer any concrete proof to back up their statements. Uncle Michael had brought his lawyer. Aunt Laura had presented the investigator's report. They had challenged Edward and Rebecca with explicit statistics, dates, and requests for accountability. According to James, Edward began ranting that everyone was ganging up on them due to misconceptions. Rebecca had cried and stated that they had dedicated their entire lives to this family, and this was how they were being returned. Sarah defended them, claiming that everyone was being harsh. Grandma struggled to maintain order but eventually gave up. Michael and Laura both stated that they were seeking legal action. Edward had stated that if that was what they intended, he would battle them in court. Everyone had departed angrily. At 4:15 p.m., Grandma left me a voice message. She expressed disappointment that I had not gone to the meeting. She stated that families should address challenges together rather than avoiding them. She said I began this issue and it was my obligation to see it through. She stated she had no idea what I was trying to accomplish, but I was ripping the family apart. I sat in my flat and listened to the message 3 times. My grandma, whom I had always loved and respected, blamed me for driving the family apart. Not Edward for accepting money that was not his. Not Rebecca, who lied about estate distributions. Not the two of them for publicly embarrassing me at my birthday dinner. I asked questions about where the money went. That's when I understood they had also gotten to her. They had persuaded her that the actual issue was not what they had done, but rather that I had exposed it. And if they had convinced her, they were undoubtedly attempting to persuade everyone else in the same way. I am not backing down. This meeting was not the end. It was only confirmation that Edward and Rebecca have no intention of accepting true responsibility for their actions. They aim to control the narrative by making themselves the victims. But I still have more moves to make, since here's what they don't know yet. I've been collecting receipts on my own. Documentation of every time they lied about me to others. They've always twisted events to their advantage. Every time they've utilized familial bonds to corrupt and control people, I'm ready to begin revealing the evidence. Final update. It's been 30 days since the birthday supper. This is probably my final update because there isn't much more to say. Edward and Rebecca are facing consequences that they cannot negotiate or manipulate their way out of. Sarah has finally had to embrace some difficult truths, and I am precisely where I want to be. The week after the disastrous family meeting, things picked up. Uncle Michael filed a formal petition with the probate court, asking a thorough examination of Grandma Rose's estate management. Aunt Laura initiated a legal lawsuit against Rebecca for the missing $150,000 from their mother's house sale. Cousin James and the other grandchildren hired a lawyer to reclaim the college fund money. According to Sarah, who arrived to my apartment for the third time, my parents hired their own lawyer, who was quite costly. She was frantic. She stated that Mom and Dad were drowning in legal bills. She explained that they would have to sell the house to pay for their defense. She claimed that everything was out of control, and that the only way to stop it was for me to advise everyone to abandon their cases. I asked Sarah why she believed I have such power. She explained that everyone knew I had begun this. She stated if I publicly admitted that I had been incorrect to raise concerns and that I believed Mom and Dad had fair explanations, then the family would back away. I asked her if she believed her parents had fair excuses for taking money from others. She stated there may be explanations we didn't comprehend. I told Sarah I was done shielding her from reality. I pulled out my phone and showed her something I had been holding on to. Screenshots of Rebecca and Sarah's text chats from 2 months before their birthday meal. Messages in which Rebecca complained about me, saying I was an embarrassment to the family and needed to be taught a lesson about respect and thanks. She said she and Edward were plotting something to put me in my place. Sarah's face turned white. She claimed she didn't recall such chats. I scrolled through more texts. Sarah agreed that I had been difficult. Ones in which she suggested a wake-up call for me. When she asked what her parents were preparing for her birthday, Rebecca said it would be one she'd never forget. I asked Sarah whether she still wanted to say she had no idea about the birthday supper beforehand. She began crying again. She said she didn't know the specifics. She explained that she had assumed they were simply going to have a serious chat with me in front of the family. She claimed she had no knowledge of the images, the invoice, or my termination. She admitted that when it happened, she was stunned as well. But she had no idea what to do. I asked her why she had taken the car keys. She claimed Dad had told her to. She said that he had stated that the car was his property and that I no longer deserved it. She admitted she felt strange about it, but she did what he wanted because he was her father. I asked her if she felt strange about driving my car around while I took the bus to work. She didn't respond. I showed her further screenshots. These were based on my own years of observation. I collected messages in which Rebecca lied to relatives about why I wasn't attending family functions. Emails in which Edward said I was struggling financially and couldn't be relied on, despite the fact that I was doing well. They used text chains to trash-speak me to other family members for not following their life plan. Sarah questioned why I had retained all of this. I told her I'd been collecting records for 3 years because I knew they'd ultimately go too far and I'd need proof that this wasn't unexpected or one-sided. The birthday supper had only served as a catalyst. The proof of their manipulative and dominating behavior dates back years. Sarah inquired what I wanted from her. I told her I did not want anything from her. She'd made the decision to side with them. She was aware that something was planned, so she took part. She had taken my automobile. She had brought a lawyer to my apartment to put pressure on me. She'd spent a month attempting to persuade me that I was the problem. I was also done with her. She went, and I have not heard from her since. That was 11 days ago. Last Tuesday, Edward arrived at my apartment complex. He did not come to my door. He waited outside on the sidewalk. When I left for work in the morning, he was standing there. He looked awful. He had lost weight. His clothes appeared to be slept in. He looked like he had aged 10 years in 4 weeks. He began chatting instantly. He stated we needed to have a genuine chat, just the two of us, with no attorneys, other family members, or anybody else interfering. He explained that I needed to understand the family finances and the decisions he had taken over the past year. He claimed that everything he had done had been for excellent reasons, which I was too young to grasp. I informed him I was 26 years old and completely understood that he had stolen from his brother, his wife's sister, and his own grandchildren. He said it was not theft. He explained that he had been managing family resources. He explained that when you are in charge of many estates and trust funds, you must make decisions about where the money is most required. He stated that the money had been used to cover vital family expenses. I asked him what vital family expenses would necessitate $15,000 from Michael's inheritance. He stated that they were in substantial debt at the time, and that if they lost their home, the entire family would suffer. I questioned him why he didn't explain it to Michael and requested to borrow the money. He claimed Michael would not have grasped the urgency, and there was no time for discussions. I asked him about the $150,000 from Laura's house sale. He stated that Rebecca's sister had never been good with money and they were scared she would spend her inheritance. He explained that they had planned to send her the money in manageable sums over time, but Laura had ceased interacting with Rebecca due to a family quarrel, and the issue had grown problematic. I asked him about the college fund. He stated that the money has been used for family emergencies in the past when no other options were available. He explained that they had always intended to return it before the grandchildren turned 18, but the financial situation had proven more challenging than anticipated. He stated that they had been working on a plan to recover the fund before everything went wrong. Each response was a justification. Each theft was reframed as smart financial management. Every falsehood was rationalized as saving someone from oneself or avoiding a worse fate. I asked him if he truly believed what he was saying, or if he'd simply told himself these stories so many times that he'd convinced himself they were true. Edward became upset. He remarked, "I had no idea what it was like to be responsible for a family." He said I had spent 26 years receiving from them while doing nothing. He claimed I went to college on their money, lived in their house, drove their car, and never thanked them properly. He claimed that when they attempted to teach me a lesson about thankfulness, I became enraged and destroyed everything out of anger. I told him that the birthday supper was not a lesson. It was humiliating. It was a public execution, intended to punish me for not being the son Dad desired. I questioned why he had invited my boss. He stated they needed to teach me that disobeying your parents has genuine consequences. I inquired as to why he had handed me a phony invoice. He claimed he wanted me to know exactly how much I owed them. I asked him whether he recognized that everything that was going on right now was a direct result of his actions. Lawsuits, legal bills, and shattered family relationships. All of it stemmed from his decision to steal money from family members and publicly humiliate his kid when he failed to meet his expectations. Edward said, "I could halt everything." He said, "If I talked to Michael and Laura and told them I'd misunderstood the financial situations, they'd listen to me." He said, "If I admitted I'd been angry and vindictive and had stirred up trouble on purpose, the family would forgive everyone and move on." He said I had the power to fix this, but I chose not to because I wanted to see them suffer. I assured him he was correct. I wanted to see them suffer. I had spent years watching them manipulate and control others. Years of watching them offer this wonderful family picture while treating me as a failed investment. Years of knowing they were lying about their financial status, but not having enough evidence to prove it. The birthday supper was my breaking point. And sure, I purposefully posed questions that would reveal what they had been hiding. Edward accused me of being manipulative and vengeful, just like them back then. I assured him that maybe I had learnt from the greatest. He stated that this would ruin them. They would lose their house. They'd lose their status inside the family. They would lose everything they had built. I reminded him that they had built it on falsehoods and stolen money, so perhaps they deserved to lose it. He looked at me for a long time. Then he told me I was dead to him. He said I'd made my decision, and now I'd have to live with no family. He warned it would be too late once I was older and alone to realize what I'd thrown away. I told him I had abandoned them at the birthday supper when Rebecca threw away my photos. This was just making things official. He walked away. That was 8 days ago. Rebecca tried again yesterday. She called from another unknown number. When I responded, she did not yell, weep, or blame. She simply sounded exhausted. She mentioned that they were placing the house on the market. The legal bills were very expensive, so they had to settle with Michael and Laura rather than go to court. She said that they would be moving into a modest apartment. She claimed Sarah was distraught because she had grown up in that house. I asked Rebecca why she was telling me this. She stated that she wanted me to know what I had accomplished. She claimed I set out to destroy them and succeeded. She said I should feel proud. I asked her whether she had ever considered simply being honest with others. She described honesty as a luxury for those with no actual responsibilities. I asked if she regretted her birthday dinner. She expressed regret that I had turned out to be the type of person who would destroy his own family for injured feelings. I inquired if she regretted stealing from family members. She expressed regret for entrusting family members with financial information that they were not sophisticated enough to understand. I asked her whether there was any scenario in which she would accept she and Edward had done something wrong. She claimed they had made difficult judgments that individuals with limited perspectives could not understand. I told her that was my response, then we were finished. She stated we were done the night I walked out of the birthday dinner without trying to understand their point of view. I hung up. It was yesterday morning. Cousin James texted me yesterday night to provide an update. Edward and Rebecca have decided to settle. They are paying Michael $30,000, which represents his original bequest plus interest. They are paying Laura $150,000, which is what she should have received, plus an additional sum that was agreed. They are paying $45,000 total to the 6 grandchildren to settle the college fund dilemma. The house sale will conclude next month. After paying the settlements and legal fees, they'll have enough money for a small apartment and perhaps a year's worth of living expenses. Sarah has been sharing on social media about how cruel and ruthless individuals can be, how families should forgive and support one another, and how harboring grudges kills lives.